Hey. I do gotta wonder because I see what is it? I think it's the Minds Mythicist guys or whatever. They keep reposting like clips of academics.
Follow Mythicist Milwaukee on any social media platform that you use. They're great guys doing a great job, and they're just really, really decent chaps. And they are the ones that are bringing this to my attention. You know, I probably wouldn't have found a lot of this because they actually are spending the time sit through these like hour-long lectures where there's a bunch of them in a Zoom call saying the most extreme radical stuff. No one else seems to be doing it. So big props to them.
High schools and stuff.
Oh yeah,
you see them all having their Zoom calls and they're like, yeah, this is how we're going to push it in the high schools and stuff.
Yeah, it's mad.
I'm not even sure. How much investigating in a school do you have to do before you even send their kids there these days?
Quite a lot.
Anyway, so let's go to the next thing. So there's a new book that's come out called Among the Mosques, A Journey Across Muslim Britain by a British Muslim who's gone over British mosques and has then written his experiences about the whole thing. And it's caused quite a stir.
Well, his name's Ed Husain, I see.
Yeah, so he's upset the leftists, let's say. So, I mean, essentially the book, as listed here, is Islam is the fastest growing religion in the UK. So how's Islam in the UK doing? Not great. Not great for the people of Britain. For Islam itself, different question, but yeah. So the next thing here is just a sort of summation of this. So I assume the interviewer met up with him and spoke about this, or is reviewing the book here. I'm not entirely sure. But he says, multiculturalism is a noble aim that has gone wrong. Ed Husain, Tony Blair's ex-advisor, visited UK mosques for his new book and found some communities increasingly cut off from Western life.
So just to be clear, this is Tony Blair's fault.
Yep.
100%. There is no one else you can put the blame on for this. He's the one who began the mass immigration program in the UK, and as someone who grew up on a British colony in Germany, this is what he's describing when he says it's cut off from Western life. He is describing colonies.
Mm-hmm. I also kind of hate that he's like, multiculturalism is a noble aim. It's not.
No, not really.
Never was. Multiculturalism is just there's one culture here, one culture there, and they're all separate.
I mean, the British Empire was multicultural by this definition.
It's just nonsense.
It's imperial.
Yeah. Anyway, so the interview in here. The green and white minaret of the Markazi Mosque towers over the surrounding sandstone buildings of the area named after Yorkshire industrialist Thomas Savile. Today, it is almost exclusively Muslims who live among in its terraced back-to-back streets. According to the most recent census results in 2011, so this is kind of out of date now, only 48 of the 4,033 people living here were designated as white British.
So the English, out of all of these people in this area, 48 of them are English.
So that's probably less than 1%.
Yeah.
In 2011. It's been 10 years now.
Yeah.
So I don't know, 0 maybe.
Well, I look forward to the new census.
Yeah. Savile Town is the first port of call for the writer and academic Ed Husain in his new book Among the Mosques, A Journey Across Muslim Britain, in which he investigates to the extent which Muslim communities are becoming separated from the rest of Britain. The 46-year-old, who has previously worked as an advisor to Gordon Brown's government and Tony Blair after he left office, travelled the UK visiting some of the almost 2,000 mosques in the UK. Between the age of 16 and 21, he was attracted to a hardline version of the religion he says he encountered both at his local college in Tower Hamlets and in East London Mosque, where he worshipped. So he used to be a full-on Islamist. Yep. And how did he become a full-on Islamist? From living in Britain. I mean,
radicalised in Tower Hamlets in East London.
Yeah. He says he became increasingly radicalised and travelled across the Muslim world, living in Saudi Arabia and Syria. In 2003, while studying in Damascus, a friend blew himself up in a terrorist attack in Israel. So Ed has since become a liberal after going through that whirlwind, and then has come back to evaluate how is Islam doing in the UK. And yeah, it's full of people like he used to be.
People who are getting radicalised.
Mm-hmm. And are completely cut off from Britain.
Right.
According to his book, within a decade, based on ONS census of the 2001 to 2011 projections, several areas in Bradford, Blackburn, Birmingham, Leicester, Slough, Luton, and some London boroughs will become Muslim majority by 2050. Interesting.
No, there will be Muslim majority.
By 2050, meanwhile, the Muslim population of Britain is estimated to be 13 million. So, interesting how he's allowed to say that, but when anyone else says it, gets shut down.
But again, the statistics just project this.
Yeah,
it's just
data.
Yeah.
Husain's mission is to delve into the heart of those communities. However, left him profoundly depressed. In areas such as Savile Town, he fears something he calls a quiet caliphate is slowly taking shape. a separate world from the rest of society, one beholden to different rules, education, identity, and laws. It is a problem, he argues, successive governments have refused to properly acknowledge.
And I just want to be clear, right? The reason this bothers me is because, like I said, I grew up on a colony. Right, the British colonies in Germany were exactly that. They were beholden to different rules, they had different education, different identity, and different laws. We were not subject to the German government.
You were subject to the British government.
Yes,
and
it was British territory.
Yeah, this is not a sanctioned military base. These are just towns in England.
Yeah, the reason we were there is because the Germans had lost a war.
The reason these chaps are here is because...
Tony Blair.
Yeah. So he says here, we can't allow for borders to emerge in our own country, walk around parts of Walthamstow or Tower Hamlets. The physical walls may not be there, but you feel them as though you're in parts of Pakistan, India, or Bangladesh. I mean, interesting how he's allowed to talk like this. If we go to the next link, I mean, just want to plug the premium podcast we did on demographic trends, fact versus fiction here.
Yeah.
And I just find it interesting how he's able to just say this, and there's no problems. Like, this area is like being in Bangladesh, this area is like being in Pakistan. Yeah. You know,
John Cleese says it.
Demographic trends mean this is going to happen, but when someone calls up Keir Starmer and LBC and says something like that, got to shut down.
No, but it's definitely it's just the reality of what's going on in these areas, and there's no point denying it.
So we go back to the article. He continues. As we walk through the streets of Savile Town, he points out even the charity shops are devoted to the Ummah, or Muslim community.
So just for anyone who's not aware, that would be like seeing charity shops that were dedicated to Christendom. And that's like, the Ummah means Christendom for Muslims.
The Christians only.
Yeah.
So, in this case, Muslims only. Muslim community with a generation growing up here utterly detached from British culture and values. Multiculturalism, he says, was a noble aim that has gone wrong. He makes the point that in places like Savile Town, the multi bit is entirely missing. But I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure I agree.
Oh, I don't think it was a noble goal at all.
No, but I also don't agree that this isn't an example of multiculturalism exactly as. Like, well, you've got your multiculturalism. You've got, at first a area which is entirely Pakistani, let's say, in the case of Savile Town, with British people and then maybe some Indians or something, and slowly it's gone. Doesn't exist anymore. It's not coming back either.
But I don't even agree it was a noble goal, because this implies that Tony Blair was right in theory, which I don't think he was right in theory. I think that countries should have a national monoculture that integrates all of the people within it into it. People find a place where they can be represented in the mainstream of society.
I mean, this is now government policy opposite.
Tony
Blair's admitted this failed. David Cameron said this failed. Sarkozy said this failed. Angela Merkel said it's failed. Yeah. Not only is it just failed, it is not desirable. Is their conclusion. And that's why it's government policy, at least in theory, not to continue this, and yet goes on. During his visit, Husain challenged a cleric why there were no women in the mosque, and he writes in his book that he was simply told, there can be no discussion of there being women in the mosque. This would be a temptation for many. Temptation of what?
I'm sure that they were just dressing in really slutty ways.
Yeah, Muslim women, they just walk around in mini skirts that show their underwear or something. Just massive... damnation of his own flock there.
Yeah.
To back up this point, he was recommended various literature available in some of the bookshops outside. Husain shows me extracts from such one book, Guidance for Muslim Wife. According to the book, quote, when a Muslim woman leaves her home without her husband's consent, then all the angels of the skies and the entire universe curse her for this act until she returns home. And, quote, when a husband calls his wife at night to have relations with her and she refuses without valid reason, she is cursed throughout the night by angels.
Right. Okay, so just saying that doesn't sound very progressive to me, feminists. I mean, if you were looking for a really good example of misogyny and coercion, I would say that's it. It's systematically misogynistic, in fact, I think you could say. But then what do I know?
English towns, women shouldn't be able to leave their homes, otherwise they'd be cursed. And
if you refuse sex with your wife, with your husband, if you're just not in the mood, you get cursed by angels all night.
Yeah, perfectly liberal world. Mohammed Sadiq Khan, the ringleader of the July 2005 London tube bombings, which killed 52 people, planned the attack from his terrace home in Dewsbury. In 2015, Tala Asmal, the 17-year-old from Savile Town, became Britain's youngest suicide bomber for ISIL after he blew himself up in Iraq. His best friend, Hassan Mushi, was also from the area and had travelled with him. In 2008, Hassan's older brother, Mohammed Mushi, became the country's youngest convicted terrorist after police found instructions on martyrdom and explosives hidden in the 15-year-old's bedroom. I mean, that's the thing. It is really deep. Like, this stuff doesn't not have consequences.
No.
It's not just, oh, silly people who won't let their wives out. Like, no, this breeds the Islamist terrorism that we have.
Yeah.
That's exactly where it comes from. Segregation is the theme that runs through Husain's book. In nearby Bradford, he met Muslim parents who forbid their children from taking part in drama and theatre, viewing them as corrupting influence. In Blackburn, he heard stories of white and Asian youths attacking one another if they strayed into each other's neighbourhood.
I've seen plenty of videos of that happening.
But also, I love the Taliban mentality there.
Yeah.
You shall not engage in plays because it's corrupting.
Yeah.
If you act in a play, you're corrupting the youth. God. Then there is, of course, Batley, just a few miles down from Dewsbury, where a teacher was forced into hiding by death threats after showing a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad in a classroom. And again, I mean, you see how this all ties in. I mean, all these different stories you do on occasion, they all come from the same problem here, which is if you create a colony that is entirely cut off from Britain, it's not going to have British values.
And the thing is as well, it's one thing having like an sort of ethnic colony as well. Like, you know, if a bunch of Irish people come over, like, okay, you know, they don't have a holy book and a guiding teleology to their lives that is set down dogmatically 1,400 years ago by a warlord.
I mean, it's Catholicism, but it's still not that different.
Yeah,
you know?
but
Like Islam,
it's very
Islam is not
ideological.
like,
it's very ideological.
yeah, also Islam is not just another faith. It's not just
No.
another belief system.
No.
It stands out in juxtaposition to all other belief systems.
Well, it's a political belief system.
Because it's political.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he says, Ed, I have friends who are playwrights who refuse to write anything about Muslims because they are terrified of being killed. We can't live in a country where we are fearful of expressing a view, opinion, or art. Something within us is dying, and that's what I fear. Yeah, happened a long time ago. Some of the mosques he visited, notably in Belfast and Edinburgh, he encountered the peaceful, more open version of Islam, which he hopes can displace what has been allowed to take root. Here, women and men mingle together, though they pray in separate rooms, and wear Western clothes instead of Islamic dress. The Belfast mosque he visits is run by women, and they told him that they are tolerant of gay rights. So, I mean, that's amazing there. I mean, step one, though, like wearing Western clothes. I mean, don't underestimate that.
They can speak to the Bradford Muslims and see what they think about that.
Yeah, that's one of the things he notes later on, which is the difference between Pakistanis and Arabs and so forth. There is a big difference. But the wearing Western clothes thing, I really want to focus on that because I think it's one of the things that is most stark when you go to a Muslim area and everyone's dressed for the hills of Pakistan. It's like, just stop. Just no. Like, this is not a symbol of integration. This is a symbol of exclusion.
Well, it's a deliberate symbol of rejection of the native culture.
And of course, there are many British Muslims whom, for local mosque, is not such an all-consuming part of their lives as it is in Savile Town. Husain is soon to move with his wife and 2 daughters to Washington, where he is a professor at Georgetown University, and describes his book as a love letter and warning to Britain before he departs. And it sure is. But it's another one of these situations where someone's going off to the States and sort of looking back at Britain being like, that's effed.
Yeah.
Like, it's completely screwed. And for him, it's full of colonies from Pakistan that are segregated off on the lines of religion, especially.
Extremist, though, because I mean, like, people don't understand what the difference is between the strains of Islam are, and Pakistan's major strain of Islam is Deobandi.
Yeah. Half of all British mosques are Deobandi.
Yeah, half of all British mosques are Deobandi, and Deobandi's school of Islam was founded in, I think it was the 19th century, to oppose the British Empire. So it's a fundamentally anti-British version of Islam. It's highly strict, and it's the same version of Islam that the Taliban use. So it's not like some soft-hearted version that you'll find in the Arab world. Incidentally, actually, there's a lot more flexibility there. But no, it's very dogmatic.
Anyway, so I got blasted through this. So he went on LBC to talk about this with a guy talking about the whole women not being able to leave their houses and mosques and whatnot. So if we can play the first clip, this is just him talking to some guy about this.
East London Mosque, the major one in Whitechapel, where they have separate entrances, separate exits, separate facilities entirely. But they do join the main congregational prayers.
Why do they need separate entrances?
Is just to create that barrier between them, so then the men respected and the women are respected. I do understand that, you know, the men, it's just to lower their gazes, to respect the individual sexualities, so the men don't feel tempted.
Hang on a minute. I don't think when Christian men go into a church that they're leering at the women that are going in the church with them. I've never understood this argument.
I mean, I totally understand that. We would never know that what someone's intention on the inside would be, though, would it? I mean, if you present 10,000 people in front of you, you don't know whose intention is what on the inside. Yes, we're all there to worship. We're there for worshipping purposes, for good causes, in a peaceful environment. But someone's inside may not represent what's on the outside, and that's the most important part in the Islamic faith.
He sounds like an
more of
SJW.
the inside, what they feel and they believe.
But they can. I mean, that's
there should be more of that. That shouldn't be the end. But he's just like, what's wrong with you? Like, why can you not control your horniness when you go to mosque? Like, why?
Well, you know why? Because they've never had to learn this kind of self-discipline. Instead, the burden of that is put on the women instead, and that's just a common feature of Islam. But that is exactly the same reasoning as the SJWs have about racism and racists. You know, they that's why they're afraid of racists being under every corner, because you can't tell.
But this is the image I want to get up here, which is essentially this argument. I've actually had this put to me by a lady I met in university from Saudi who was nuts. And this is it here. So they got an image of a lollipop that's uncovered with ants all over it, and then a lollipop that's covered with no ants on it. And then someone saying, when they wonder why sisters cover, that's why. It's like, what? Are you literally calling Muslim men like insect rapists or something?
Well, they're saying that they have no self-control.
They see a woman with her hair out and they're like, yep, gotta have sex with that now.
Yeah, but that is honestly a very deep theme in Islamic civilization, that where self-control lies is actually now with the woman rather than the men. I mean, I think there is actually a way of looking at it as kind of like a male supremacist view.
But like, imagine, but it's weird for the male supremacist to say that they're a bunch of rapists. Well, I mean, what a put down of yourself, surely. Sure,
but if you've never been told that you should control yourself, the women have to control themselves because they're the temptation. Like, you're offloading all of this responsibility onto other people.
That's how they say it. But it's like, I don't understand how people think this is some kind of gotcha. Like, this is a massive put down among yourselves. So anyway, hashtag among the mosques is about no-go areas, is the next link here, in which he's saying it's not about no-go areas, but there are real issues to be talked about, which are complex. And this is because of a article from the Daily Mail. So if you go to the next one, this is just a definition of no-go areas from Wikipedia in case you need one. So a no-go area or no-go zone is a neighborhood or other geographic area that might be where some or all of outsiders are either physically prevented from entering or can only enter at risk. And if you're thinking of areas where people are saying plays, you can't do them because they're corrupting the youth.
The sort of thing that Tim Pool was escorted out of when he visited Sweden.
Yeah, places where culturally women can't leave the home without their male's permission. Culturally, where Al-Qaeda didn't do nothing. White and Asian youths are attacking each other on sight for being in the wrong neighborhood, and women can't be around men. Do you think there's a risk to being in such a zone? Would you call that a no-go zone then?
Only if you were born wrong.
But it seems to be that, if white and Asian youths are attacking each other on sight, that would seem like a no-go zone for the different groups. So the Daily Mail article does exactly this, and they demonstrate that, they title their stuff. British towns are no-go areas for white people. Muslim authors' study of mosque reveals children attacked for being white, parents making families live under Taliban-like rules, and women who can't leave their home without permission. And they back up everything they say with this guy's research.
Yeah.
So they're not wrong. Like, surprise, actually, from the Daily Mail. But they give you an example of a conversation. So they say, one man in Blackburn said Asian teenagers repeatedly jumped his 12-year-old son in the broad daylight for being white. One man tells him, my son been jumped 5 times. They were all Asian, 5 times. You mean Asian kids, I tried to clarify. No, Asian men, he says, with an emphasis. 18 and 19-year-olds. My lad is only 12. They battered him in broad daylight. For what, I asked. They don't look happy with my questions, and they both go quiet. For being white, he says, slowly and deliberately. Wrong area. No, I'm unable to stop myself. Yes, he says. You get into Blackburn, mate. You go to certain areas of Blackburn, they're no-go zones, no-go areas, says the larger man. I still can't believe them. Look, this is what the media guys say, but how can that be true? Yes, it is true. There are no-go areas in Blackburn, mate. Yes. I'm shocked. How can there be no-go areas? So what will happen, I ask? If we go down to Wally Range, like him, me at night, and we're guaranteed to get jumped. We won't walk out of it. We won't walk to the other end of the street. So that's the conversation he has in the book, and he lists. It's like there's some guy who's had his kids beaten up multiple times for going down the wrong street. And Ho's mad for daring to claim this with the evidence of the conversation. You can see here, Indy. Daily Mail slammed for article claiming there are no-go areas for white people.
Thank you, Islamo-leftists. Thank you for your valiant defence of the racial beating of English children.
So if you scroll down, there's just a whole bunch of these, and I want to go through some of them because you can see the Ho's mad. keep going. There's like Twitter posts you want to get to. Yeah. So here we go. James Wong, wait. The Daily Mail claiming Edinburgh and Cardiff are no-go areas for white people.
No, didn't say that.
No. So Blackburn, you didn't read anything.
Thanks for the lie, James.
So if you go to the next one. Hannah Rose Woods, all verified people, verified checkmarks, absolutely cannot cope with the Daily Mail's conviction that Disbury is a no-go area for white people.
Some parts of it, apparently, Hannah, deal with it.
No, Blackburn, he said in the article.
Right,
so,
okay,
again, just not reading anything. David Scott, of all the rich multicultural areas of Manchester, they try to suppress that was a no white area. The Daily Mail opt for Disbury. Disbury. Nope. Blackburn. Again, you didn't read any of it. Like, you guys don't engage at all with the stuff. You go to the next one.
Just liars.
It just keeps going. And they're like so proud, like, oh, getting dunked on the Daily Mail here. We all know that Daily Mail love being hateful, but this is ridiculous. Disbury is an affluent, very, very white area of Manchester.
So why are you bringing it up? Because we're talking about the literal racial ghettos that exist in Blackburn.
So that's the example being given for a no-go zone. I mean, he's saying there are other problems in areas like Disbury and so on and so forth with the certain mosques there. But that's not the example given. And just the leftist response is just, haha, how can they say that this place is a no-go zone?
Finally,
well, they didn't.
Outright racism from the Daily Mail. Oh, thank you, Mr. I Don't Bake Cakes on Twitter. Appreciate you calling this racism. I'm sure the kid who's being beaten for being white is just being like, well, thank God I'm not a racist.
Yeah. So if you go to the next link, this is just the local mosque, which is bloody huge in Blackburn. This is the one that's teaching radical nonsense. If you go to the next link, this is just the street they're talking about. I went down here on Google Earth, and it's just
Welfare Trust.
Yeah, there's just loads of Muslim shops. Like every shop is named like Mecca Foods or Lahore something or whatever, and so on and so forth.
Ed Husain.
If you go to the next link, this is just the biggest hoe who is mad, Ash Sarkar. There aren't any Muslim no-go areas in the UK.
Liar.
Only places that the Daily Mail are confident that its readership would feel uncomfortable in because there are too many brown people walking around.
Okay, say it to one of the victims, Ash. You absolute liar. You just Islamo-leftist subversive. That's what you are.
Like, you're literally dealing with evidence, people saying to him, yeah, this has happened.
Yeah, but no, Ash Sarkar somehow knows better. No, she's lying. She's lying because she's in favour of this. And as we covered, in fact, in the premium podcast, we have lots of her statements where she's cheering on the immigration into Britain. She is what her exact words were: "We're winning, lads." So don't trust her.
If you go to the next one, I just want to mention as well, she did a 60 Minutes interview in which she defined cancel culture. She defined it as an important tool of social justice, when it doesn't exist.
Well, mob rule is an important tool of social justice. Thanks, Ash.
I love it. When they're being caught out, it doesn't exist. When they want to use it, it's an important tool. Yep. I just put the definition from John Stuart Mill. A social tyranny more formidable than many kinds of political oppression. Though not usually upheld by such extreme penalty, it leaves fewer means of escape, penetrating much more deeply into the details of life and enslaving the soul itself. Totally right, from John Stuart Mill. I mean, that was him talking about when he described it as social tyranny or whatever. But that is what cancel culture is. It is social tyranny. And she responded to Konstantin Kisin calling her out on this. So we go to the next one. So she says, put it this way. I asked the guy interviewing me to define cancel culture, which he did. I then asked him to give me an example of it happening according to his own definition, which he couldn't, even calling out to his producer for help. And what's interesting is, if you go to the next one, she's agreed to go on trigonometry and discuss with Constantine about exactly this topic and define cancel culture. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting.
I'd also love to ask her about Blackburn, what she makes of the... I mean, like, the Muslim guy here, like, he's gone up and down the country to 10 mosques. I think it's 10 mosques.
Ash Sarkar sat in her apartment in London. She hasn't gone anywhere. And she's got...
He used to be a radical himself. He's not coming from nowhere.
Yeah. But she's a literal communist, and she's an Islamo leftist. She's just lying. This is all lies. All lies. Do not trust her. If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.